How are you guys doing? Last week's Torah portion was Kititse, or, or something roughly. It sounds like that. Kititse, Kitz or TSE or EI, depending on which of the many versions of how to spell Hebrew pronunciations and English transliteration, or whatever it's called. But hopefully you guys are reading along at home. And I'm praying to God to give you the help that you need and show you the lessons and the truth that you need to see every week. This week's Torah portion had a ton of mitzvot, a ton of commandments listed, a whole bunch. Deuteronomy is just, I really don't like the Goyish names. Devarim, but it's, Deuteronomy is going to be easiest for most people to know what I'm talking about. Deuteronomy Kititse is 21:10, Deuteronomy 21:10 through 25:19. It starts off with the laws of taking a captive woman as a wife during war. And it's, there are some things in the Torah, like once you learn like a baseline of what is permitted and what is forbidden, you get an idea of like a lay of the land for what God thinks is appropriate and what he really dislikes a lot. This law is like, what now? This doesn't make any sense. But God made the Yetzer Hara, so he knows that when a guy's in war and he hasn't seen his wife for a while, he can get kind of crazy. And he could have made things where it's not like that, but he didn't. So he made an exception for if a man wants to take a captive woman, an Israelite, because that's really who this applies to. But the Rashi says in the commentary on, I think, 21:10 or 11, somewhere, the laws of the captive woman as a wife are 21:10 to 14. Rashi says this exception to the general laws of morality and like forbidden relations, especially between the Jews and the Goyim, is only because a man's evil inclination is so strong that basically even if God forbid it, there's a lot of guys that would just not have the strength to overcome it. But the like with everything in the Torah, the juxtaposition, like where a verse lies and what is before and what is after, tells a much bigger story. And so Rashi points out, like, one, it's he has to take her home and shave her head and let her nails grow and like take off her fine clothes and basically like dress her in rags and let her mourn the death of her, because the army of the nation of Israel pretty much murdered her mother and father and probably all her family and most of or maybe not murdered, but killed in war. Pretty much most of her nation. So she's gonna be stuck in this Israelite man's house, looking like a war captive, just horrible and crying and miserable. And Rashi says, in his house, like not stuffing her in some like far off apartment while she mourns and gets it over with, and then he can get on with whatever he was intending. He said he's supposed to like see her in this disheveled state like day after day for a month, and then finally get it through his head that this is not really what God wants. And once this evil inclination hopefully dies down a bit, he will let her go. But if he doesn't, the next verses tell what will eventually happen if he doesn't. The next verses are if a man takes a wife and he ends up hating her, like what to do. And then the laws of like the firstborn son of the hated wife. The guy still has to give it the rights of the firstborn son, a double portion of the inheritance, like what two of the other sons would get, goes to the son that is firstborn. He still has to give it to the son of the hated wife, even if he hates her. And then after that, it goes into a rebellious son. And Rashi basically says, like knows the position of all the verses. If a man takes basically a war trophy as a wife, eventually she will come to be hated, and then she will have a rebellious son, and he won't listen, and they'll try to chastise him, and he won't listen, and they'll take him to the Bet Din, to the court for the elders to judge him. He'll be found guilty, and then they'll have to stone him at the gates of the city. So a whole long, horrible list of stuff, all for like a very short-lived physical gratification, which is really like a summary for most people's entire lives in this world. Like, just not quite so stark and brutal as this scenario. Deuteronomy 22:1. You shall not see your brother's ox go astray and hide yourself from them. You shall surely bring them back to your brother. And I think it was already given previously, either earlier on in Deuteronomy or in Numbers or Leviticus. I can't recall which, but as far as like strengthening your brother when he's basically having a hard time, like when he becomes poor or needs money or food or whatever, you're supposed to help him out. But just in case anyone thought, helping your fellow wasn't a big deal, God goes in and says, you have to do this for their ox and their ass and his garment and every lost thing. You may not hide your eyes, and especially so, if someone is sinning, and you can help help return them to the path. Because helping return a person's property is a commandment from the Torah. But nothing, no property, no physical, not even physical life is as important as a soul, and where it ends up being after this world. And there's the mitzvah of sending away the mother bird from the nest. Deuteronomy 22 and 6. And Rashi says, notice the verses. It's just, like related or next to. It's if you send away the mother bird, but this is only applies. So you're not supposed to go looking for it. It's only if you find it on the way, or when you're out walking or something. You're not supposed to not a bird you find in a courtyard or one that you go out searching for to do this specifically. It's just if you see one, then it is something to do. I'm not sure if this applies to the goyim though. I could have done this earlier this spring, but my unknowing whether it was kosher for a goy to do, and my heart not being in line with God's nearly 100%. That's for sure. I didn't end up doing it. I just watched the birds and come and go. But I guess after reading this, it's I didn't really happen upon it. I walked out the door and it was right there. So that probably qualifies as what Rashi says is finding it in your courtyard. Not exactly qualifies for the mitzvah, even if it is permitted. But he says if you do that, and the blessings of building a new house and planting a vineyard and getting a field and having fine garments will be fulfilled, as well as the long life from sending away the mother bird. And the laws of not planting diverse kinds. And 22, 9, and 11. Not planting, not mixing things is really, really important to God. At least certain things. Not planting certain kinds of crops together. Not plowing an ox with an ass. Or any other two alike animals. Not mixing wool and linen. I think there's an exception for a tzitzit, which is usually transferred or translated as fringes. Fringes on the corner of your garment, which is next after 2211 about Shatnez, or Shatnez, Shatnez. 2212 is you shall make fringes upon the four corners of your garment, which is only for Jews or those in the process of conversion. Most of these are because they were given to the nation of Israel specifically, but there's a lot that apply to everyone. Well, some of the ones that could be could apply to everyone. The reason why they don't is for that separation, which is, I didn't read this in any commentary, but I would say it's a likelihood that is a good likelihood that that's the reason why the mitzvah of tzitzit is right after not mixing like kinds. And it's clearly obvious that, there's really not any more diverse kinds than a Jew and a Goy. And so there always has to be some separation, even between a Jew and a Goy that's not an idol worshiper. I didn't really notice anything that stood out as clear proof for Yeshu being garbage in this week. Maybe I just didn't have the assistance to see it. God blinded me, maybe. Either that, or he figured, whatever it was, 4 or 5 weeks in a row of just beating you in the face with the truth that the New Testament is idol worship was enough for a while. In Deuteronomy 23, it lists some of I think all the people that can't be converts. A mamzer, which is a bastard, someone who is born of incest or adultery, cannot not be a convert. And the mamzerim, the people of Jews that are illegitimate children, halakhically, by Jewish law and according to the Torah, they can only marry other mamzerim, other illegitimate children. And they also I think at least some of the moms there's some of the moms don't have a tribe. Like I forget what what the fellow's name was. It was one of the first Torah portions I started reading a few months ago. Well, he made a big mistake and blasphemed God's name because he got mad that he didn't have a tribe, didn't like the rules, and threw a fit, and then ended up getting the death penalty. But the odd thing is, I think in like the next week's Torah portion, you don't find out what happened until, or maybe it's a week or two later. You don't find out what happened to the guy until there's like Slofchad, the wood gatherer, violates Shabbat, and Moshe doesn't know what to do with him. Not that he didn't know that violating Shabbat was death penalty, but he didn't know whether he should put him with the blasphemer or if they should separate them so as not to insult the blasphemer, which is very harsh. A guy who curses God's name is, and that's what God says. He's like God tells Moshe that to not keep them together, like put them in separate confinements. And the commentary on those verses basically says that this is from this we learn that violating Shabbat is worse than blaspheming God's name. Which is, there's a lot in the Torah for a lot of people that's hard to grasp. Even if you're trying to see the truth, or understand and accept a lot of it or most of it, no matter who you are, there's always going to be something that's just hard to accept. But if we really want to see the truth, we have to, because if we do what it says, there's a certain point where God proves to us that it's all real. Because there's no other instruction manual that is divine, that is truly from God, that will prove these things out to a person if they do them. So at a certain point, we just have to give up and say, this is the truth, and it's from God, and there's certain things we just aren't meant to understand, and our reasoning is not like God's, that's for sure. I mean, not even most of the sages, when they study Torah like super intensely with the most help from God that a person could ever get, could they ever really get 100%? There's always something that is just unfathomable or beyond comprehension. And it has to be that way because we're people and we're not God. an Ammonite or a Moabite shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord. Even to their 10th generation shall they not enter into the congregation of the Lord forever. Why is that? Because you didn't give bread and water when you came out of Egypt. Because they didn't give you bread and water when you came out of Egypt, and because they hired Bilam, the Rasha, the wicked wizard of the east, to curse the children of Israel. But he, even though he wanted to and he tried, he couldn't, because it was disgusting and vile of a person he was. He could not go against God. At least not how he wanted to. He wanted to spit out curses and curse the nation of Israel, but all it poured out of his mouth was just endless blessings. And Balak, I think he was a king of Moab. He was not pleased at all. But the Ammonites or the Moabites shall not enter the congregation of Israel forever and ever, not ever. Deuteronomy 23:8, which is right after that, or shortly after, is thou shalt not abhor an Edomite, for he is thy brother. Thou shalt not abhor a Mitzrayim, an Egyptian, because thou was a stranger in his land. Which says a lot about what God finds important. I think it says after the third generation, in 23:9, in the third generation, children of Edom and Egypt can convert. But the Ammonites and the Moabites did not murder any Jew. All they did was cause them to sin. And the Edomites and the Egyptians murdered millions of Jews. Just decimated them. Were absolutely horrible. But the Edomites are the brother of Israel, even though they fight against them. Sometimes, unfortunately. And the Egyptians, because they, Israel was a stranger in his land, and they gave him a place to stay and jobs, and were nice to them when they had pretty much nothing. When it was just 70 souls. Even though eventually they kind of forgot everything good that Joseph did to build Egypt into a world superpower and turn them into slaves, and started murdering their children day and night by the hundreds. But those are God's rules. He says this body that we have is, it's important to take care of it and not be stupid and destructive and to try to be healthy. But it's just a piece of meat that's, comes from a putrid seed, and eventually, really soon, in the scheme of things, it's going to rot in the dust and get eaten by worms. And it certainly doesn't last very long. So while murder is certainly not good and it's a sin from the Torah, and God, God doesn't like it, there is no comparison to murdering a soul, because that is forever. I mean, it takes what is forever. It takes the soul and makes it very impermanent, makes it like the body, just gone. There's so much to learn. How are you guys doing? Only God can kill a soul. But our actions determine whether that happens or not. That's a really neat thing and really terrifying, scary thing. Well, I wanted to do a stream just for some motivation on Friday, but I got sidetracked and lost steam. I'm not sure how debilitating your slip up was. Hopefully it wasn't too severe. But it's important to no matter how how big or small we perceive our failures, to one, always do teshuva, ASAP, TESHUBA, to return to God through the process that is enumerated in various texts, including the written Torah itself. But it's just it's really spread out. So the Rambam did us all a favor, and he made it really clear and simple. Stop the sin, build a fence to prevent it from sinning again. Regret the sin and confess to God, or if it's between yourself and another person, to say you're sorry to that person and make amends, whether it's like just with words, or compensating them for whatever damage, however hard that may be, whether it's monetary or people think monetary damage is hard, but really there's much more difficult things to rectify than monetary damage. Much more. Thank God for the miracle of not just teshuva, but what's been here on this screen all I forgot about until now. Jeremiah 15:19. Therefore, thus says the Lord, if you return, then I will bring ye back, and you shall stand before me clean and washed. And that means if a person does teshuvah, not only can they return to God and get close to Him while they're in this world and be righteous, even after being the most wicked, horrible person, they can be brand new. But they can also literally stand before me in Shemayim, in heaven, in Olam Haba, after they leave this world. And the really amazing thing is, and if you bring out the precious from the vial, you shall be as my mouth. Meaning, like, your words will be like mine, in that they are your prayers and your pleadings will be fulfilled like the Word of God, which is just insane. And you know, not that a person's words would ever really be to that extent, but even just a minute microcosmic fraction that God allows that to occur in this world is still just phenomenal. Let them return to you, but return not to them. Help other people do teshuvah, and do teshuvah yourself, and God will literally answer your prayers if you do it in a like, everything is scaled. If you do it just a little bit, you'll get a little bit of your prayers answered. A lot more than what they would have otherwise been. But if you do it like with all your heart and just toil and self-sacrifice forever until you're dead, until God, gently takes you from the world. Or maybe not so gently, depending on how much of a rectification each person has to do, and how much good God wants to give us. Sometimes it can get pretty violent and be not the most pleasant, but this place is just a blink of an eye. We have so little time to work here, and most people spend all of it doing absolutely nothing of any value. In fact, quite the opposite. All they do is just stir the pot and chip away at the giant opening of Gehinnom before them, not satisfied with its size. But the other thing is, it's important. The Yetzer Hara is really never to be underestimated. He is strong and very clever. And even though we may know all these secrets to God's heart and success, the Yetzer Hara will occasionally find ways to find some little crack to creep in with one of his virtually innumerable tools. and get us somehow to think, think things that are untrue or blow them out of proportion, or, most importantly in this case, to God forbid to give up because of one little mistake, or to beat ourselves up over it over and over again. That is definitely not a recipe for success. At least not for us. It's a recipe for success for the Satan, but we can't let that happen. There's something Rabbi Ruin has been talking about for a while that I've finally started to really understand the concept, and I've tried to put it into practice, or at least begin thinking about how I can put it into practice to really burn strong Musar and Torah into my soul, so I always have impenetrable defense and strength, even in the most weakest moments. And I've been thinking about this for a while, and I remember someone mentioned last year some stupid comment on one of his shiurim like a year or so ago about how when he kind of sings certain parts of the Torah that he's given over in a shiur, they're like, just stick to reading the Torah and talking in a normal voice. This isn't working for you, or some ridiculous mental midget comment. People think that they know what they're doing and have any concept of anything, and they're totally clueless. So many people have no idea, no idea at all. And the reason why he does that is, one, that's how, I think that's how, one way that he learns, but it's also a way to emotionally engage the listener. Nothing always works as people intend, but there's a lot of times where he will go into one of those songs, and it will just be super powerful. And that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to find something, whatever it is. When I first started, the thing that I found, I didn't even, God just gave it to me. I had no idea what I was doing, other than I knew I had a phone and I could record the screen. And there were certain parts of the shiurim that I really connected to. And so I would try to I was restricted to Twitter. So I had 2 minutes and 20 seconds. So I had to try to stuff the most powerful, whatever it is, 160 seconds or something, or 140 seconds of video, give or take. mostly less because I can never post more than 100 or 2 minutes and 20 seconds because it's Twitter. But so that's what I did for like a year, or at least 6 months, something like that. I don't think I really started posting clips until after I'd been doing it for, I don't know, at least a few months, something like that. But we have to find tools that are like that, and then work on them and refine them into a way where we are able to take something, some piece of Torah, some words in Musar that are really strong, that drive home a concept or a law, a fundamental aspect of the Torah, and just drive it into our heart and burn it into our soul, to where it stirs us up. Like there's a clip that I think just got posted today or tonight or something on his channel, and I think that's what he was saying was like to take it, like I think the example he gave was people use the same concept to like remember stupid pop lyrics and rap music and all kinds of other garbage, and they get fired up about about absolute trash and nonsense, and mostly unfortunately sins, and they don't use it for what God intended, to learn Torah. That's awesome, Lee. That is that was great. It's 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 never good to fail, but when we can really like learn a lot from our failures, that's when they are it's beneficial. And person, there's a really critical thing to know. There's no mitzvah by way of a sin. You can't commit you can't fulfill God's will by intentionally committing a sin. So just get that. We have to get that out of our head to start with. But if we're trying our best and we do fail, and we do all the steps we know that work, I'm gonna try to go over a bunch more stuff, God willing, with if He gives me the time and the strength. Time is running out really fast, though. There's only 2 weeks left to Rosh Hashanah, which is, that's another thing I wanted to go over was thinking of the time between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur as extra credit is really not the best analogy, I guess. At least not exactly in the scenario I painted. Maybe like think of it like you get to the end of the school year, and you've seen people take the class that you're in, like do really well or fail miserably, but the work that everyone hands in, no one gets a grade. So no one really knows how. No one knows if they pass or fail till like the report cards come in. But these report cards are are pretty serious. There's a lot more than, you know, getting $100 bonus from your parents, or going to college and getting a good career even. It's like, will you live another year, or will what kind of year will you have if you do live? So it's serious stuff. But just do your best. Don't take it serious, but don't overwhelm yourself. That's definitely what I did. Thank God I did that earlier and not later. And somehow God had the mercy to make a miracle to give me the strength and put me back together again before Elul, so I could compete in this marathon. Because that's what it is. It's a marathon. And it's not even over at Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. It's an ultra marathon. Like, the key is trying to set reasonable goals, and always trying to push yourself, and always do a heshbon nefesh, self-accounting. It's like, see where you stand with everything. It's good to do it every day, at least a little bit, and then like every so often, like every week or every month, or hopefully it becomes like a regular thing. Like, you look at what you've done and analyze, like, where are my strong points, where are my weak points, where did I fail, where can I do better. And like Rabbi Reuben said in the Jewish Hashkafa series, based on in the name of the Chazon Ish, in the Chazon Ish's book, Emunah V'Bitachon, Truth and Faith, or Faith and Trust. It says that the key is not to tackle the big flaws in our character traits, our midot. Like, say your worst character trait that you need to deal with is anger, and you always explode at like the smallest things. It's not really the best place to start to try to like be less angry, and that's really not a recipe for success anyway. The key is to find successes on things that are manageable first. Like, say you have some issues with being stingy, or jealous, or having an evil eye, like not looking favorably on other people that are doing well, but it's really not that bad. It's something that you think you can improve on without too much trouble. So you work on that and you build that, and then you do, a couple of those, and then you strengthen your strong points, and you make some of your slightly weak points less weak and more strong. And then once you get like a bundle of those together, then that enables you to start hacking away at the big stuff. But you don't attack the unwieldy, like, arms and branches. You dig down to the root and figure out, where does this all come from? And that's the kind of a hard part that takes a lot of you know constant analyzing and like thinking about and reflecting on, like, why do I get angry? Well, you know, one, I'm an idol worshiper. Not that I actually worship JCPenney or any other idol, but that's what the root of idolatry is. The root of idolatry, or no, the root of anger. The root of anger is heresy. The reason why a person gets angry is because even for a moment, somewhere deep inside, they think that they are God, or at the very least, like they're a God. Like a person puts themselves on par with, in their own head, with the master of the universe in the moment where they lash out in like a physical display of anger. Anything short of a physical outburst where a person is like visibly shaken and obviously angry, especially if they like smash something or throw something. But yeah, so it's important to find out like what is the root source of why, and then dig around for why 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 does certain things affect a person, affect you, affect me a certain way, and then try to isolate them, and then get to the truth of it all and you know accept it. It's definitely not an easy process, and the Cousin Niche says it's basically a lifelong deal. And all the greatest sages will pretty much say that the uh, the more Torah that you know, the more Musar that you need to learn and go over and repeat all this stuff to like ingrain it in your soul. Because I'm not sure all the reasons, but I think one is like the more a person learns, the more likely they are, if they don't have a lot of Musar, to think that their learning is their own mind, which it is certainly not. God grants wisdom. And he will take it all away in an instant and leave you tongue-tied and dumbfounded. And if you really screw up, it may be for a long time, like a really long time. Maybe you screw up so bad, God just plucks everything you ever learned out of your head. God forbid that would happen. That's why it's important to learn Musar, learn rebuke, and like strong character development, and read words of the sages that stir up your heart to keep learning and have a lot of fear of heaven, a lot of Yirat Shamayim, fear of God. But there's a lot of stuff that I learned in like uh, drug and alcohol recovery that applies to the Torah. Most importantly, because that's where it's all from. Anything good, anyway. Anything that is going to be successful in like staying clean off drugs and alcohol or improving your life. Any of the wisdom of the Goyim that has any real value, especially in regards to like long term, like outside this world, long term stuff. It's all in the Torah. One of them is more like like rehab or alcohol, I don't know, recovery, I guess. They call it people, places, and things. I can't remember exactly what the concept is called in the Torah, but it's basically like you build a fence. I think that's probably the closest concept that I can recall. Like the concept of Teshuvah, build a fence around the sin. It's a lot simpler and more all-encompassing than people, places, and things, but it's all the same thing. You identify like who, what, and where it is that are like weak points for your Yetzirah to fail, and you do a self-accounting and go through what, who, what, and where all those people, places, and things are, and then you make like you literally make plans and like a game plan of how you're going to live your life to work around all that stuff, and you physically avoid and go around everything that you possibly can, and then everything that you can't, you build like what they call coping skills in recovery and other ridiculous self-help nonsense. But what we're concerned with is the Torah, and our coping skills are learning Torah that will help us, like burning a few verses of Torah into your head that you can recite, that reinforce your positive behavior and kill your Yetzirah, and kill your evil inclination to commit a sin. Like for me, one thing that's worked really well so far is keep well in mind three things, and you will not come to the grip of sin. Know what there is above you. There is an eye that sees, there is an ear that listens, and there is a hand that writes everything. Writes down all your deeds in a book. And when I think of that, one, you know, I have to think of the consequences of my own actions, like all the all the horrible curses that will befall a person that are enumerated in the Torah for all the sins that a person could commit, and all the suffering that I've already gone through in this world that I really, you know, would prefer not to go through most of it again, let alone anything worse or more. And only after that is the consideration of, you know, I really love being close to God, and I think I would probably die if I lost that. And that, you know, that's enough to give a person some serious Yirat Shamayim. Not something, not something I ever want to really think about at all. But you know, on the other hand, it's good. It's good to think about that, because those are also consequences that we have to keep in mind and to be fearful of. The air quality here was pretty good until pretty much yesterday. The weather's kind of been shifting back and forth for the last week or so. I felt like weather might turn and get kind of rainy on and off. Then it got cold. Like it got down to 48 the night before. And then all of a sudden yesterday the weather just went crazy. Got dry and windy and hot. And like 16% humidity. And there's lots of smoke in the air. I mean, not a whole lot, but a lot more than there was, enough to make the sun orange and make it look overcast till it was like noon, pretty much. All until someone said, you know, hasn't been too smoky lately. And I thought, oh no, no. Oh, you like smoke? Oh, you like? We'll give you some smoke. I'll give you some smoke since you like smoke so much. You guys like smoke? I really don't like smoke, but I guess tomorrow's September 11th. That's what the calendar says, according to Goyim. it's I'm scared. I mean, I've pretty much been pretty scared for years now. Just sometimes it kind of gets hidden away, or goes numb, or something. I'm not sure exactly what. Well, and I mean, not just like a couple years, like since I started doing teshuva, or since COVID, or like a long time. At first, I was just thinking, maybe like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, 7 years, something like that, since 2015. And I started thinking about, like, no, I got really freaked out in like 2013. And I probably should have been, more scared at various times before that, but I was not really too aware of what was going on other than my own physical desires for a lot of years. So that explains that one. But it's good to have fear, but only if it motivates us to fulfill God's will. Hopefully, I can just keep my head down and focus on what's in front of me forever, or at least whatever needs done. Sometimes it's not always what's in front of me. Sometimes I have to look around, which it can be hard to do. I get like in a hyper focused zone. I guess that's why gardening is good for me, because it's easy to go back and forth between, like, working on a computer and being lost in whatever project for Kiru that I'm working on, and going out to garden and look in the dirt, because both places God is there. God's in the dirt and he's in the computer. He's everywhere else. The important thing is that I can see him, not not physically, but I can, like, see or, like, feel the interaction. Like, there's lots of weeds to pick, so I know I have lots of problems I need to work on. Learning Torah from the dirt, and Musar, and seeing the moths lay eggs and the squirrels dig holes, and thinking about how far I've come since last year, like running off the front porch and chasing a squirrel around the yard like a moron. I come pretty far. Now I just think, that's certainly my first reaction, is like, oh, how dare you, squirrel. You dug a hole. in my, I don't have anything. What am I talking about? I just need to learn to shut up and be more grateful and pray more to God. Do a lot more teshuva and a lot more kiruv. Share a lot, learn, and share a lot more Torah. It's been about to get wild for like the last 20 years. I mean, I have to be scared. We all do, you know, in some huge respect. It's just, what are we afraid of? And what does the fear lead to? Is it immobilizing and debilitating, or causing like irrational panic and knee-jerk reactions and stupid decisions, both, you know, financial and interpersonal and otherwise? Or is it causing us to get closer to God and learn more and do more teshuva and pray more and beg Him for the help to see the truth and use whatever, you know, measly talents that we have, the merit for Him to give us in the most efficient way possible, to do whatever we can to finally fulfill our purpose and help other people, which is the most important thing. That's another secret I learned recently, is when we pray for other people, when we help other people before ourselves, then that's what God, you know, that's what gets God to really like pay attention to us in a good way. Of course, I learned this from Rabbi Reuben, like pretty much everything else, or at least, you know, most of the stuff that I've talked about recently. It's getting late though. I need to get some sleep. Surviving is good, as long as it's to live another day so we can do more mitzvot and not more sins. Do more, fulfill more of God's will and not our own will. It's like it says in Pirkei Avot, the more that we nullify our own will in the face of God's will, when we really need something need something, need for our prayers to be answered for someone else or for ourselves that would otherwise be, you know, not answered or not fulfilled. If we make, you know, if we make those requests that are like, few and far between, and try to make God's will priority, like most of the time, then when there's a conflict between the will of other people and our will, then He will favor our will. I know I probably butchered that pretty badly. I'm sorry. We all have to learn a lot more. You guys have a good night as well. I'm not sure how many days there is left. There's not a whole lot. I think it's a little more than 2 weeks to Rosh Hashanah, to New Year's, when God brings down the judgment. Maybe that's why it feels like this. It's just the Midat Hadin. The attribute of judgment is like, it's out there. Hopefully we can do everything that is within our ability over the next 2 weeks to sweeten His judgment and help every single human being in this world do full and complete teshuvah. May it be God's will. That's another thing that's been scaring me. Is I kind of the last week, or give or take, I've shifted my prayers for people to do teshuvah to a little bit more like immediate and intense request of this year. Like every single human being, please God, please help us all to do full and complete teshuvah this year, like in the next like 14, 15 days, give or take. And somewhere over the last couple of days, I realized that exactly what that would require, and it's really just absolutely terrifying. I mean, I'm sure there's some way that God could pull some amazing selective miracle, or like some unknown situation that I or any human being can't ever think of, to where it's only just as bad as it needs to be for each individual person personally, and no more. So like the people that may have an easier time or that have already started would have some sympathy on those that don't, and be able to kind of help them through. But still, even with that, without it being just all Him hidden completely, and and no, not even the slightest bit of revealing, and having everything, not revealed, I guess. All just in like terrifying war and disease and catastrophe and earthquakes and volcano eruptions and meteor, you know, asteroid showering the earth, and war and murder and rape and just untold horrors that would usually take for the entire world to repent and return to God. That's scary. If it is His will, and if we have the merit, I know we can all make it, as hard as it may seem in each moment that it happens. Everything is necessary to drive us exactly where He wants us to be. Which is clinging to Him with every ounce of strength that He gives us. I'm gonna get going though. I need to get to sleep. I'm gonna make one more request for everyone. Is that may God grant us all the wisdom and the strength to outsmart and to overpower our Yetzirah, and to pass the test that He places before us. Please let us all know that we're nothing. Nullify our own will, and do everything that we possibly can to do full and complete Teshuvah 110,000%, and drag every single soul in this world, or maybe just run through every single soul in this world, hand in hand, run through the gates of repentance just before or on Rosh Hashanah, right at the last moment, and then we can spend the next 10 days just making sure we did extra good, so the judgment is extra sweet with ripe apples and extra honey. You're welcome. Hope you guys have a good night. May God protect us all from evil.